everybody, and welcome to my all-new lighting setup. Let me know if this is too warm. I made it as warm as it could possibly get, but I feel like warm lighting's welcoming. It's kind of like, hey, come, sit down. Let's talk about Spirited Away. And in this video, that's exactly what we're going to do, and fortunately enough, Murphy Napier, one of my favorite booktubers and good friend, has decided to come on in and give her opinions on this masterpiece from Japan, and it was quite the experience to watch once again. I've seen this movie once before when I was Smurf-sized, when I was tiny, and watching it again as an adult was an absolute joy. There's always that innate fear when you pick up a movie you haven't seen since you were a kid, and that it won't hold up, it won't be as magical as you can remember. And I'd say 90% of the time that fear is justified. Movies tend not to hold up once you're an adult. Amazingly enough, Spirited Away is better as an adult. And that's because of the excruciating amount of effort that was clearly taken by Studio Ghibli to make this the masterpiece it is. So not only did this movie break records upon its release and become the first Japanese movie to win the animated category at the Oscars, but it just, upon viewing, hits you. I don't care who you are, you have to appreciate this film. Even if you for some reason hate the plot, hate the story, hate all these other things, the animation alone is arguably the best I have ever seen. As Murphy's gonna hit on more in a minute, just small little details are taken to make this the most breathing, living environment of animation maybe ever created. The smallest details are not forgotten, to the point where scene transitions often just hold on these tiny little beautiful frames of art, and those were so luscious. A lot of the times when there's just B-roll going in a movie, you don't really care. It's just rain outside, it's whatever, it's establishing environment. But the establishment of environment in Spirited Away is done so magnificently. When it would cut to the actual scene starting, I would kind of go, oh, it was disappointing to stop looking at these beautiful moments. Okay, enough gushing about that side of things. Murph's gonna touch on that more. I'm gonna go ahead and set up this movie for you. Spirited Away is the story of a 10-year-old girl whose family accidentally transports into a spirit realm. Once into this spirit realm, her parents fall under the curse of a witch, and she must try and find a way to rescue her parents and escape back home. This is obviously a reflection on the turbulence in the little girl's life, because as we are shown, she is in the middle of one of the most traumatic things a kid can go through, and that is a move. She's going to a new school, new house that she hasn't even been to yet, and that's when they are transported in the middle of this move to the spirit world. Very metaphorical, and that should establish how this movie's plot is structured for you as well. It is not a plot-focused necessarily story. It is more about the growth of the character. It's more about the experience and what it represents. And that is the kind of framing you really need going in. I'm not gonna say this movie is flawless. It definitely has a couple little things that are just left behind plot-wise. Again, that's gonna be Murph's side of things. But overall, I would argue this is one of the best movies I've ever seen, certainly deserving to be in the top 100 at least. I found myself enamored by the pacing, the development of this world. Actually, let's really get in there. The world here is a wonderful example of chaos resulting in poetic beauty, absurdism realizing a environment that you want to go see, because the randomness, you are broken down as a viewer very quickly to just accept whatever this world is to throw at you. And once that click happens in your brain, it just becomes this wondrous joy to have a turnip spirit appear. Little things of soot carrying coal into a furnace somehow becomes one of the most adorable experiences of your adult life. So much personality is packed. So much, it's unbelievable that this is probably one of my favorite fantasy worlds ever seen in film, and it's one movie. Usually for being a immense, incredible fantasy world, you're inspired by an already established book, you have several movies to develop it. No, it's just 2 hours, it's almost exactly 2 hours, and by the end of it, even though this world feels completely random, it feels so chaotic, you kind of understand it. There's a pattern to the madness almost. I loved that aspect of this so much. I do want to quickly add one note here that I felt like every single beat of this narrative, despite it being this more representative storytelling where it's not the most tight, I couldn't remove a single scene or even like chop a moment from a scene because every little quiet, just sitting on a train watching these characters feels so important, so impactful with how things are developing. And that sounds impossible with what I've been saying about how, yeah, the plot is a little bit more representative than direct and metaphorical, and you just have to experience it. People who've seen the movie probably get what I'm saying, that there isn't any time wasted, and I'm fascinated by how well they found that balance. Anyway, this is just a quick last-minute note insert here. So I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to Murphy real quick, who has a little bit of a different opinion of this movie of me as a whole. I think I'm a bit more positive, but it's interesting to get her side of things as well, and she's specifically gonna be delving into the characters more than I did here, as well as the plot.
I'm going to start off my section of this review with characters, and this is something that I think the movie did so well, and that's largely due to the animation. The emotion shown on these characters' faces was so well done. Chihiro was so scared in the beginning, but the animation really put that on display. I felt like I was watching every emotion she experienced. Not just the fear in the beginning, but we even sat through an entire meal with her, where we watched her eat a whole meal as she went from this emotional state of closed off, empty, tired, exhausted, to crying through the meal and finally experiencing her emotions. We got to watch this whole scene. We sat through an entire meal with her, but this worked because there was such an emphasis on her emotions, as well as watching her continue to be afraid throughout the entire movie, but watching her make choices and having an emotional arc that really was very satisfying. Having her emotions so on display made it easy for me to connect with her and to want to protect her and want to see her okay in the end, want to follow her as a character. Also, the details that were so unimportant, like when Chihiro was putting on her shoes and she put them on and then she stood up and she tapped her toe to make sure that her foot was fully in the shoe before she started walking. This is so unnecessary, but it's in there. These little details like this made these characters feel real and made me feel attached to them, to the point that when development did come later on that did feel abrupt and jarring, I actually didn't mind it that much. I don't want to say spoilers. All I'll say is when connections between some characters happened, I don't feel like it was so fast. It was so fast and abrupt, but it was actually really satisfying because I was so invested in the characters that I didn't mind that we didn't have build-up for other elements. Now let's talk about the plot, which I don't think we need to spend too much time on because, man, was the plot not the focus in this movie. And I do wish that I knew that going in, so I want to make sure that you guys know that going in because, wow, this movie is about the themes, the environment, and the experience, and the animation. The animation is really on display and showing off. I did not go into this movie thinking that, and while I do think that it's obvious, I definitely was in the movie thinking, okay, plot's not the focus here. The focus is obviously the themes, right? So I'm trying to pick up on the themes. I'm trying to focus on what the story is focusing on. But I still, and I know it's a personal thing, I still, even though I could tell that the plot wasn't the focus of the story, came out of the movie a little bit frustrated about how many threads of the plot never got resolved or even addressed again. There are so many elements, like even relationship elements, that are just sort of dropped in at one point or another in the movie and then never addressed again, never talked about again, and they don't actually connect every time. And even though I was able to easily pick up that plot isn't going to be the focus in this story, I still, at the end of the movie, felt like I had been holding my breath the entire time and didn't even realize it, but I had a mental list of all the things that were just dropped on me, and I was waiting for them to connect. And most of them didn't. There's a lot of mystery in this story. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot that I go into the movie expecting to have an experience and to just let go of your analyzing mind and enjoy it. I have a hard time doing that. I'm a very analytical consumer. I really love complex, intricate plots and stories and characters, and I feel like I was very satisfied with the characters. I was very satisfied with the themes. The plot I should have been aware that I needed to let go a lot more than I did. I also want to talk about the pacing here, even though that's technically not what I'm supposed to be talking about here. I really appreciate how much the writers trusted the kids to be intrigued by the story and be propelled along by the intrigue. There's so many movies directed at kids that are lightning fast, hopping from one fast action loud moment to the next, and that's not what this is. I would actually liken this pacing to The Lord of the Rings, where you'll have moments of extreme slow when the story is supposed to be slow, and then when moments of action happen, they happen so abruptly that you could easily miss major plot points and find yourself wondering, wait, why are they on a train now? What? Wait, she changed, she's not after this thing anymore. It could be really easy to lose the thread of the plot because when high action and intense moments happen, they happen in a moment and then they're over, much like how it is in real life. But that's not the way our media usually is formatted. So I think the pacing was really intentional. I think it intentionally trusted intrigue to propel the viewers along, and it intentionally made the intense moments abrupt, fast, and instant on purpose. And I actually really liked that. I do wish that the threads of the plot actually connected. It doesn't have to be spelled out. Just mention it again. Help me get there on my own. But no, there are a lot of things that they're just gonna drop you and leave you on. And that is hard for me. That's not my ideal, but knowing that the focus of the story is on the themes, the animation, the environment, the experience, I do really appreciate it because I think that the things that they focused on were the things that they did incredibly, and the things that they didn't have a focus on, you know, you can tell. Overall, I do really like the story a lot though, even though they didn't tie it together as well as I tend to like. Thanks for inviting me to join you on this review, Daniel. I loved watching Spirited Away with you, and I'll enjoy reading through everybody's comments as well.
I completely agree with Murph that the plot here is not the most tight and complete aspect of this movie, but I don't think it really needs to be. I like this more non-traditional kind of storytelling where it's not really the focus of what's going on. In fact, I'll go as far as to state the ending here just kind of starts happening because it needs to. The characters have grown the amount they really should, so okay, let's go ahead and jump to the end. There's one character specifically who's like horrifically injured, gets a bit of a MacGuffin, and then is just fine, and you can tell that happened because it just needed to happen for the movie to wrap up. It's very much so, okay, the characters where they need to be, and we're gonna finish. That's probably the biggest flaw I have with it, but I completely accept that that's the kind of story we're watching here. Because one, it is more of a kid's movie. This is an adventure for children to go on. And two, what else could this movie have done? This is a very development of character and metaphorical journey we're on. So once that's accomplished, I don't feel the need for us to sit and methodically hammer out all these details to get to the end. I'm more than happy to go along for the ride and just accept the joyous resolution to this journey. Overall, I mean, my final thoughts on this is that this is one of the best animated movies ever. There are elements you can nitpick if you are constraining yourself to typical Western storytelling, but I think that's a mistake to do that. Turn this on, just try and experience the journey as much as you can, but if that's not necessarily your style and you want a more typical structured plot with complete resolution for every single element, maybe go for Princess Mononoke instead, because I find that to be more in that vein. I think I actually, upon rewatching, think I like this more than Princess Mononoke. I think I enjoy Spirited Away even more. That's a tough one. They're so different. And that's kind of one of the real strengths of Studio Ghibli, I've noticed, is they can really adjust and reframe themselves to tell a new story and do it masterfully. Miyazaki's a genius, and Spirited Away is a complete, brilliant masterpiece. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I'm doing here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace.